I'll turn it over to Coach for an opening statement.
Thanks, Claire. For you guys that travel, welcome back. I want to make sure one last time before we move forward to really reflect on the experience. It was an unbelievable experience to go out there to Dublin, Ireland, to experience that game in that country with our fans were tremendous. I mean, it truly, obviously, I know it was a home game, but it felt that way too. It was an exciting environment that really appreciate everybody that kind of did the hard work that went into producing that game. It was extremely exciting, and I'm glad I was a part of it. Yesterday we obviously had a chance to watch the film finally, and you got a 7.5 hour flight home. You can watch the film. We watched it again when we got back here, and again, really pleased with the operation, the execution, throughout the entirety of a game. That was the challenge. Obviously, many of you guys saw last year's game, and we played pretty well in the first half and did not play well in the second half. And the ability for those guys to continue to stay in the moment and just continue to focus on every minute, every play, doing your job. And then you had a little bit of not adversity, but, you missed a field goal late. Defensively, you let them drive and kick a field goal. And those are great. I love it because it's great teaching opportunities. And you look for those moments as you evaluate, especially after a big win like that. You look for opportunities, continue to teach and continue to make sure your players know the urgency you have to fix mistakes. And so I remember watching a play with the offense staff yesterday and saying that's a play that we got to make sure we correct with urgency, and that's what our entire program has to have. Is the same urgency no matter what the result of the game is, to make sure that we are correcting and teaching and doing everything we need to do with urgency. The players of the game were offensively Sam Hartman, defensively Maris Leofau, and then special teams was Chris Tyree. I just thought about it that we haven't even told him yet. This is different than last year because we've kind of changed our schedule. Yesterday was obviously the flight home. We weren't able to do a normal Sunday, but right now the plan is for this season to not do what we did last year. And Sundays will be their off days, and Mondays we'll meet and have our practice on Mondays, which is a similar schedule to what it was like before I became the head coach. So it's not a huge change for them, but through the off season, I kind of made a decision to go to that route. Now we get the opportunity to come back home and play, obviously, in our stadium. And I know for a lot of the new guys, there will be a chance on Friday to participate in the Rockney Rally. We're excited to do that. And then Saturday to play our first game at Notre Dame Stadium. And we don't take that opportunity for granted. We obviously know this is our first opportunity to play an FCS opponent and obviously an HBCU. And I'm truly, and we'll make sure they are grateful for the opportunity to be able to do this. And I know that there's distinct, they're different universities, but they're both distinct and celebrating their own way. But I think at the core values that both universities possess, they align. And I think that's a great opportunity, and it's going to be a great experience for both schools. And so, lastly, obviously, the chance to be across the field from Eddie George, I'm looking forward to that. I grew up, obviously, in Ohio and watching Eddie George play for Ohio State and have gotten to know him throughout the years. Really looking forward to this opportunity to go against him and his football team that is talent. I mean, they're a good team. We spent quite a bit of yesterday as a staff watching some of the things they do, both sides of the ball. They have some playmakers. I think the quarterback, I know they're listing him as number 7. We got some challenges now, and we better keep him in the pocket. And the running back is a good player that you see his yards after contact are impressive. And their defense, I think they were number 2 in their conference last year. Really good in red zone. And the one thing I also noticed was that as you watch their games, they don't turn the ball over and they take the ball away. And that's a sign of a well-coached team. So we are truly looking forward to this opportunity versus a good opponent. And With that, I'll open up for questions.
John Bryce.
Marcus, you just touched on it a little bit, but do you remember maybe the first time you met or talked to Eddie George, and then how has your relationship grown throughout the years, maybe even dating back to last year when you were both becoming head coaches?
I think this is his third year, but the last time I saw him, other than when they came here for the press conference, was I was actually in Nashville. I think I was meeting with the Titans to do just some professional development, and Eddie was there, and I got a chance to see him. You know, I mean, there's many games I've watched of Eddie George. I mean, he was a great player. I don't remember any distinct one, but, you know, to see him win the Heisman is a moment that I remember as a young person. But we've met each other many times throughout my time at Ohio State, and so he has always been a first-class individual, great family man, and someone you really looked up to.
And then Deion Colzie, maybe what does it say about his strides, not only physically but mentally, the way that he maybe didn't have the best camp that we saw at times, but he responded in a big way Saturday?
Yeah, I think, you know, I know he wasn't listed as a starter, but, you know, I wrote it down. Deion Colzie had 7 plays. He ended up having 7 reps on offense. He played a lot on special teams, but take advantage of your opportunities, you know, and that's what a great example of 7 plays. He ends up with a touchdown and some other big plays. And even some of the special teams things he did, you know, it's not – nobody comes to Notre Dame to be a special teamer. But you have to embrace that role. And that we really talk to our players about the value of special teams players as you look to the next level. There's very few individuals that play in the NFL that don't have special teams value. And for our guys to understand that, and Coach Biagi's done a great job of explaining, like, that's what NFL guys are looking for, unless you're the quarterback or unless you're the first-round tackle or an offensive lineman. Like, you have to be able to contribute on special teams. So I think 2 things I reflect on when I think of Deion Colzie's performance, that you take advantage of your opportunity, 7 reps, and you truly took advantage of every single opportunity you got. And the unselfishness and the execution he did on special teams, to me, is I applaud him for it.
Third row on your left, Pete Byrne.
Hey, Marcus.
How you doing, Pete?
We talked a lot before Ireland about, you know, the plan you guys had kind of exhausted in terms of getting there and the logistics and trying to have the guys peak. And we also addressed that you had a plan for coming back, but we never really got into that. So how do you guys kind of get them to peak again, coming back from a flight, reset their clocks, all that stuff?
Yeah, so made the decision. We could have put in a waiver to use yesterday as a practice day, but we decided not to, and we wanted to give them the day off. A lot of those guys did not sleep after the game, so I think we got back to our hotel a little bit after 12:30, and I think the first bus took off at 5:30 in the morning, or 5:15. The second bus was at 5:30, and the last bus was at 6. And so they didn't. They probably had thought they were going to be able to sleep on the plane, but, you know, to sleep on a plane is not an easy thing to do. So we decided to give them yesterday off, encourage them not just to sleep all day, because we want to try to get their cycles back to where it needs to be, and try to stay up, try to go on a walk, and do some different things when you got back. And so I know a lot of them got good sleep last night, but even me and our coaching staff, like, you don't feel 100% probably until you get 2 nights. The same thing is when we went there, when you're changing time zones, like, it's going to take 2 nights to really get adjusted. So we have to be smart on what we're going to do today. We're not going to do a whole bunch. We're going to meet. We're going to watch the game. We're going to put it to rest, and then we're going to start moving forward to Tennessee State and go out and have more of a jog through instead of a practice on a Monday. And as I looked at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the work is the work. The scout work is the work, but where I could tweak it in terms of maybe an individual period, taking off a couple minutes of practice, to really ultimately everything we do is to make sure Saturday they're ready to peak and perform at 3:30. So that's kind of just the small changes we've made since they've come back.
You had several freshmen that played well on Saturday. They have never experienced the atmosphere they're going to be in this Saturday, and I think maybe most years you don't have to worry about a true freshman going in game one and having to handle that environment, but you might have that this week. So how do you prepare those guys to be ready to handle everything around them this week? And it, because maybe that's not typical.
Yeah. You got a little taste of it in Dublin, Ireland, because it was a home game for us. But they've never played at Notre Dame Stadium. And so I want them to embrace it, right? Embrace the moment, embrace being in this special place. But that has nothing to do with you doing your job. And that's the common theme, right, is that you'll hear me say is that we get a chance to come back into this stadium with our great fans, with our students, in what I believe will be just a packed and great stadium. But with all that being said, embrace it, enjoy it pregame, but once the foot hits the ball, you're focused on one thing, is that's win the interval. You're focused on just doing your job on that play, and nothing else matters. We often say 120 by 53 in the third, right? Same thing as in Dublin, Ireland. Like, that's really what matters. Enjoy it, because not every place in the country is like Notre Dame Stadium, but your focus has to be, once the game starts, just to win the interval. Do those things that we talk about that it takes to win each play.
Front row on your right, Pete Sampson.
Marcus, when you talk about opportunities for growth, I was interested as you looked at the tape of Sam, what you would have picked out there. Are there any moments here where you're like, this is actually could be tuned up a little bit despite, the great stat line?
Yeah, it was the one third down that we ended up kicking the field goal. We probably didn't make the read or put the ball in the placement exactly where he wanted it to go. The play before that, he thought he was getting an all-out pressure, made a check, and ended up not being all-out pressure. And there's different tells maybe that we could show him that, hey, make sure that, you hopefully make the correct call there. But, I mean, I'm being really picky, Ball security is something I've always talked to him about, and he likes to scramble back around there with that one hand on the ball, and we're trying to break that habit. So, guys, I'm being picky. He played it really extremely well, and he's a very focused and mature individual that will continuously work at everything. But there's always learning opportunities in every single game we play.
The change on the Sunday, Monday practice schedule, how much of that was player feedback? Is that recovery based? What went into that?
A lot of different science, player feedback. Now, some of them are kind of, some they like it, and some like the Sunday practice, some didn't. So I don't take too much into that. But it's ultimately, I have to just make a decision what I think is best for Saturday. And each place is different. And that's probably the biggest thing I've learned in a year of experience is you can't just take a plan and say it worked for me as a player or it worked at a previous place I was at and it's going to work at Notre Dame, right? You got to take in consideration what they're asked to do on a Monday here compared to what it was like somewhere else. And so that's kind of the biggest things. I wanted them to truly have a day off. On paper, like you get one day off, but I wanted them to be able to, take Sunday and really work academically, and you don't have anything mandatory from us on Sunday. Like academics are so important. They have to have time to really work at that, and also the lifting part of what we're asking them to do. So a lot of things went into that decision. It's not just one thing. A lot of things went to that decision to make.
Real quick, Jaden Greathouse, when you're recruiting, how significant do you think the high school offense that he played in was to making him ready to do some of the things he's doing here?
Yeah. I said this about both. Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores both come from really, really good high school programs where they're almost coached in a way that is very similar to college. Both. I remember leaving both places saying the transition from those guys from high school to college won't be as big as some other guys that didn't come from those type of programs. So that's a huge part of it. You shoot. I mean, some of the high school football in Texas there's no, those stadiums are, they're used to that. But I think it's the structure of what they're asked to do with those programs in terms of the concepts, in terms of practice schedules, all those things really have an impact as you transition to college.
Third row in the middle, Tim Priester.
Marcus, I meant to count how many times Hartman was under center, but it was usually in the red zone, right, and short yardage stuff. Whose idea was that? Was that something Jared Parker brought with him? And how, if so, or how do you guys see that as an advantage?
Him under center or not under center?
Under center.
Yeah, it's, there's different reasons why you put a quarterback under center, and sometimes you keep him in the gun. But that's something our offensive staff talks in depth about, hey, this play would be best run under center, and a lot has to do with, if it's a pass, what it can do to the defense from an under center position in terms of play action and things like that. And if it's a run, a lot of it has to do with the angles of the running back and then the quarterback in terms of maybe not doing it out of gun. So the offensive staff really takes time to make those decisions.
Was that something that Parker was adamant about, wanting to incorporate, or?
Yeah, it's important to him,
Yeah.
and I think it's important to have success. I think that's the biggest thing. Being under center in certain situations will help us have success.
Right. And then, he also played in a very different offense at Wake Forest with RPOs and slow mesh. And then you hear people talk about, what a big adjustment that is for a quarterback, but a guy that experienced, was that a big adjustment for him?
I think it was. It was throughout the spring. You saw that there was his footwork, right, and you saw at times in practice that he would revert back to some of his previous footwork that he did at Wake Forest, and so that is something that took a lot of work to kind of really change his footwork in terms of getting into it how Coach Parker and Coach Dooley wanted here.
Second row in the middle, Vahid Sadrazadeh.
Marcus, talking about the depth of this team, I think it's something that all of us in this room and in your locker room know, hey, this team is really deep, and you've got some special talent. What surprised you the most about the depth of the team on Saturday?
I think there wasn't a drop-off, and that's what you want to make sure you're able to do is that you can roll guys in there, keep them fresh, and there's not a drop-off. And that's to me really a compliment to our coaches and the depth they've been able to create. I think about our D-line and the amount of people that played and what they did. Now, I'm sure I don't know if you guys know, Gabe Rubio will be out for a couple weeks. Just a knee injury, so he's got to, get a couple things fixed in his knee, but he'll be out for a couple weeks. That was really the only injury we had from the game. But with that's just going to give somebody else another opportunity to step up, and again, I go back to training camp where we mandated, hey, we have to get some of the 2s and 3s, guys that we're counting on, reps against 1s so that we know they're able to do their job versus the best. Not 2s versus 2s or 3s versus 3s. I want to see guys going against our best so we know before we get into Dublin, Ireland, what they can do.
And a win like this could catapult the team, right? I mean, but when you're looking at overall, and I know you like to say you go day by day, well, what does this do for the feeling inside that locker room, and how do you not have the guys get overly confident going into the next week?
Yeah, I talked to the staff about this last night, and that we all have to be saying the same thing, right, is that we don't need some type of false narrative, some type of don't overlook any opponent. We don't need that. Let's talk about what really matters, and that's winning the day, right? And that's going to take care of Saturday. If we win this Monday, right? And that's what we all have to be saying in our meeting rooms, because I've said this to you guys before. Their voices are so much stronger than mine because they're with them so much longer. And so our coaches have to be saying the same thing in that position. Guys, don't worry about Saturday. Don't worry about exactly, hey, can we go 2-0? Can this make us, start just catapulting the season? Why did we have success on Saturday? What do we have to do to have success today? And really focus on that. And so that's going to be the motivation to me is can we have a great Monday? Can we learn? Right? We say we win and we learn. So we won the game. What can we learn in this hour or 2 meetings that we're going to have as we look back at the last game? Right? And I feel like I'm having a team meeting right now, right? We're going to look this first hour. We're going to look at the last game. Your job is to learn. We have to learn. It's a challenge. You have to learn from last game. Good, bad, doesn't matter. Learn from it. Now as we get ready for our opponent the second hour, right? Study the heck out of it. Let's learn the game plan. What is our thoughts, okay? And then we got to go out there and have a great 45 to hour walkthrough or jog through. And that's got to be our focus. Like, it's us versus Tennessee State today. That's our mindset. They have meetings in practice today, and we have meetings in practice today. Who's going to have the better meetings in practice? And if we can keep motivating them to just win these moments, Saturday will take care of itself. It will. And as we get into next week, it'll take care of itself. But don't start looking ahead. And it's me too, right? Don't start looking, okay, Tennessee State, NC State. Oh, man, here we go. No, it doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter, because if you lose today, guess what? The result of what you want on Saturday isn't going to be what you really, really want. So you have to just focus on right now in the day and truly win today.
Down in front on your left, Jack Sobel.
Marcus, with Maris winning that Defensive Player of the Week award, what did he do well in particular, and in addition the other three linebackers as well?
They all played well. All had winning performances. Man, Maris played with a physicality that I have not seen for a while. Now, Maris is a physical linebacker. I mean, he's a really good player, but I went back and watched that film. I mean, Maris was playing so physical and constantly did it. Like, listen, I played linebacker, and there's certain plays or certain formations you can see and say, okay, we're going head-to-head, we got to go. And it's not natural to really enjoy that over and over and over and over and over, but you have to do it. And that's what I saw. There were certain formations. Maris knew 3 backs in the back. Okay, here, there's coming a lead on me. It's me versus this dude. In the very first play of the game, if you go back and watch it, Maris, the dude got him a little bit, the Navy fullback. And they got the same formation 4 or 5 times, and Maris, every play, went and took him on. And that's what you love to see, man, a guy that's willing to sacrifice his body, but also do your job. Like, you can't just be a physical player and not do your job, right? And Maris did them both. And so he had a forced fumble. You can see, as you go back, I told Coach Goins last night, you can see defensive guys truly being aware of the football, trying to get it out. We had 0 turnovers, but that is not because there wasn't awareness and a lack of really effort to do it. And so credit to them. Though the turnovers, takeaways will come as long as we are constantly being aware of where that ball is.
And then on the other side, how would you evaluate Jared Parker's first game of the season calling plays?
I told him, shoot, just every game do that. You know what I mean? It's pretty simple. Like, the way you called it that game, and every game should be like that. But, I don't want to not do him justice, but I would say as I'm the coordinator, right? So I'm the defensive coordinator. Go back to my defense coordinator days. Play calling at times can be overrated. I mean, you called such a great game. They executed, man. The operation was amazing. That's what I really thought was good, was the ability for Jared to collect his thoughts and get them to the signalers and get them in and to say, hold. Hey, this is the look. I want to change the call. Like, those are the things that I was really impressed by. And then between series, the communication in terms of the different looks they were seeing versus their defense, right? And the ability to say, okay, hey, Sam, here's the looks. O-line, here's the looks. Like, that to me is what's impressive. Like, I mean, guys, you all can have a call sheet and just close your eye. Okay, let's call this play. Like, the preparation, the execution, and the adjustments to me is really what makes a coordinator successful. And that's what to me impressed me more than anything about Jared.
Front row, far right, Eric Hansen.
Hey, Coach.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
All right. So Audric came out after the ball security issue. I wonder if that was coincidence, and then also kind of how you felt like the running back rotation worked out for you.
Let's start with the room. 5 guys, man, that are all talented. I told Coach McCullough that he's done a great job at keeping those guys unselfish, at putting them in situations that they have packages based off who they are and some of their strengths. And so I was really impressed by the depth and the execution of that room. To address Audric, he was taken out of the game. I talked with Coach McCullough about it because there's a standard that he and our offense and our team is set for that room, and you can't put the ball on the ground. And we don't care if you're Sam Hartman or Audric Estime. Like, if you're not doing the things that we say are the standards for this program in this room, then there's consequences. And so part of that was, hey, Audric, you're going to be pulled for a little bit because you can't put the ball on the ground. And then to me, it's also a credit to Audric Estime, who is the guy. He's the guy. We all know that he's the guy, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to stand here on the sideline for a couple series or whatever, however long it was. When you give me my opportunity, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go do my job. Like, it's just, to me, a credit to Dylan McCullough for the trust that his players have in him, and a credit to Audric Estime that we all know is the guy, RB1, to be able to accept that, you know what, you're going to be held accountable because you did not perform to our standard. You put the ball on the ground. And I thought it was a great example to not just those two, but to everybody in that room, even our entire team. Nobody's bigger than the standard. Nobody's above the standard. And if you don't perform to the standard, there's consequences. We understand that. We know Audric Estime didn't mean to put the ball on the ground, but the ball's on the ground. So we got to hold him accountable to that standard. And so it's actually a really proud moment to be able to see that. Like, there's no pouting. There's no guy throwing his helmet mad because he's taking a note. Like, hold me accountable, coach. That's your job. And when I get the opportunity to go back in, I will. And he did, and he did a great job.
With the Navy game in the past, and it's not just Notre Dame teams, but a lot of Notre Dame teams have not just had trouble adjusting into their offense, but coming out of it, going back to defending a traditional offense. You did not have that problem last year, and I wonder what are the things, what are the keys that you kind of look to get your defense reoriented to playing a traditional offense?
Yeah. Part of that is in the preparation, okay, is that we did not just go exclusively Navy-only defense. Within our Navy personnel, we were able to play, as I call, normal defense. And we saw some normal formations out of Navy, right? So we were able to really do that in our preparation. So I think the adjustment from where we were to now won't be a big one, because we've been able to do it through camp. Even when we go against our offense, it's good on good, and we've got to be able to play normal defense versus our offense. And so I really think that the transition back to just playing normal defenses won't be tremendous. The other thing is that we have to be smart in terms of our preparation, right? Like, you can't go from that Navy game plan to a game plan this week that is super complicated, right? You got to make sure our only objective for our coaches, I said, is make sure our great players play great. And so in order to do that, that is a coach and a player challenge, right? As coaches, you have to give your great players an opportunity to play great by making sure you do things that they can execute. Players, you have to embrace that and understand, okay, here's the game plan. I'm going to study it. I'm going to work it so that on Saturday I have a chance to go out there and play great.
Our final question will be third row on your right, Tim O'Malley.
Coach, when you got with Coach Rudolph reviewing those two new starting guards, how did he review them in terms of their operation, their approach, their physicality? Obviously was there.
Yeah, they both had winning performances, which was good to see. The physicality, as you just said, was extremely impressive. There is some execution, some calls, some techniques that we have to improve at, but they really performed at a high level, especially being their first game starting in guard. And I think, when you have those two guys outside and Zeke Correll in the middle that have played so much ball, it helps those guys be able to get into the correct calls, right? And I know sometimes you can watch, say, what kind of calls do you have in the run game? Like, there's calls where we're doubling back to a certain person. Well, if this guy moves, we're going to double back to this person. And those things we have to make sure we're all on the same page. But when you have those two edge in bookends and that guy in the middle that can help out, it helps in that transition. But those guys, they performed really well. I'm proud of the way they practiced. They played. Good? All right. Thanks, guys.